Good evening. I would like to call the February 24th, 2025 Common Council meeting to order. Clerk Toronto, I believe you would like to make some comments regarding the link for this meeting and other expectations.
Good evening, members of the public. For audio quality, we will be muting everyone not speaking by default to maintain good audio quality for council and yourselves. If you would like to speak during the meeting on a certain agenda item or during privilege of the floor, please submit your request in the chat. Directions to do so will be listed in the chat shortly. As we ask you to provide your full name, address, and topic you are speaking on, as those are required for all speakers at in-person council meetings. If you would like to be called on during the meeting to provide public input, please insert the following in the chat and you will be called on during the relevant time for public input. My name is full name and I live at address, and I would like to speak on or against agenda item. You will then be given 5 minutes to speak. Please be sure to unmute yourself prior to giving your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Toronto. I would like to thank all of the residents and all of the members here today that have taken out of their time to be here today. And we want to take a minute just to thank you for being here today. At this time, we're asked everyone to stand for invocation. And our very special guest is Rabbi Michael Friedland from Sinai Synagogue. Let's receive him right now.
Thank you. Let us pray. Source of life, we ask your blessing for this common council, leaders chosen by our city's citizens to administer all affairs of our city fairly with courage and conviction, compassion and constancy. Creator of all flesh, bless the citizens of our city so that we may forge a common bond, banishing hatred and bigotry and safeguarding the ideals and principles that exalt our nation. May our city of South Bend enable all of its citizens to achieve their highest potential. May we recognize and celebrate that each of us, each citizen, is unique, but in concert we are capable of creating a masterful woven tapestry. Let us know the singularity of each voice, but also rejoice in the harmony of the collective choir. Let us grow to appreciate that we live in a community in which it is not important whom you love, but that you love. May the creative and innovative spirit that built this city renew our prosperity, and may all the city's affinity groups benefit from its bounty. With these blessings, O Holy One, surely we will be able to sing as the prophet Isaiah promised in Scripture. In that day, this song shall be sung in the land of Judah. Ours is a mighty city. God makes victory our inner and outer wall. And we say, Amen.
Please remain standing as we repeat the
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Clerk Toronto, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Present.
Councilmember McBride is excused. Councilmember Warner. Councilmember Bolden Simpson is online.
Present.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Present.
Councilmember White.
Present.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Present.
Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Present.
Council President Lee.
Present.
8 council members present.
All right. We will now hear from the Subcommittee on Minutes for February 10th, 2025.
To the Common Council of the City of South Bend, the subcommittee has inspected the minutes of the February 10th, 2025 meeting of the Common Council and found them to be correct. Therefore, we recommend the same be approved.
All right. I will now entertain a motion.
Accept the minutes.
Second.
There's been a move and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner. Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis, Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Council Vice President Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right. The minutes for the February 10th meeting is now accepted. Special business, we were supposed to be doing a recognition for WBS, but that has been postponed. And so now we're going to go to reports from city offices. We have our director of the Citizens Police Review Board, Pastor Charles King, is here to give us an update. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Charles King III, and I am housed at the Key Bank Building, 202 South Michigan Street here in South Bend, Indiana. And I don't know who's controlling the slides, but I want to start with slide 4, if possible. It's with great honor to present the 2024 update from the Community Police Review Board. Okay. I'll give a couple quick updates while they're getting the slide. So recently in our last meeting, we were able to select officers, and we selected for a chairperson, Dr. Joseph Adams. The vice chair is Comedique Thomas. Our secretary is Sharia Williams. So we have leadership on the board now, and the board is ready to start operating as intended. Okay. All right, perfect. So the executive summary. Over the last year for 2024, we had 16 complaints that the review board received. So in those 16 complaints, 6 of them were forwarded to the South Bend Police Department for an additional investigation. We didn't resolve any cases in 2024 because the board had mandatory training and it was unable to adjudicate or to do any formal procedural reviews. We also didn't make any policy recommendations last year because of that training. Public meetings held, this is actually a typo. It should be 3 because we scheduled 4, but one of the meetings was canceled due to not having a quorum. Finally, our training as a board collectively was 226 hours of training, and the CPRB board is continuing that training, doing ride-alongs currently. And we also joined NACOLE, which is a National Oversight Association for Civilian Review, and they give additional training as well throughout the year. So that'll be training that we will always continually be involved in. All right. Let's go to, yes, thank you. All right, so objectives for 2025. The main thing for 2024 was to get things foundationally established, to make sure that this board has the things in place to operate as it should. There's a lot of training involved in being a part of this board. 226 hours is just a very small portion of it because we still have quite a bit of training that we're doing currently and will continue to do. But 2025, one of the things that we wanted to do is make sure we had a mechanism in place with operational bylaws. So part of my assignment was to create a draft bylaws. We created those and they have been submitted. There's tweaks that the board wants to see done on that. So that's going to adjust and it's going to change. And that probably could adjust for the next 2 or 3 years, to be honest, because those bylaws are going to be living bylaws as we work through the processes of review. All right, point 2, strengthening public engagement through targeted campaigns and educational initiatives. The board, the office itself, I should say, I have been out in the community. I've started a program called Mobile Office Friday. And my first Mobile Office Friday was held at Linden Grill. The second one in March will be at the South Bend Chocolate Cafe. And we'll go out in the community. I had a chance to engage with 35 citizens. And hopefully when we go to the Chocolate Cafe, there'll be even more, because I worked during lunch hour at the first Mobile Office Friday, but the next one will be after hours. So I'll start at 5 p.m. and stay till 7 p.m. And hopefully I can get more constituents to talk to me and find out more information about the review board. Point 3, we're going to deliver policy recommendations to enhance police practices and community relations. Part of this board's job is to provide recommendations to the police department, see things from a citizen's perspective, and to provide to the police department information to enhance what they do, benefit what they do, and to try to push their approach to a level that's both beneficial for the residents and for the police department. Okay. Point 4, foster collaboration with academic and civic organizations. One of the organizations that we've targeted is the Notre Dame Law School Clinic, and we're working with them now. I also have a connection with several other organizations to create a youth engaged board so we can have young people at the table too, and make sure that they're getting the information that adults should be getting. So when they get to adulthood, they don't run into the same issues. Okay. Point 5, measures and report on the board's impact through data-driven metrics and community surveys. That's something that the Mobile Office Fridays will present. People will be able to grab information from me. I'll be able to put information in their hands, do surveys, and get information, as well as we plan on having multiple open to the public meetings and community engagement efforts. This Friday, we have a pastor summit. So we're going to talk to all the clergy and make sure that we can get the clergy on board with engaging with the police and ultimately benefiting the community. So that's one of the things that we have. All right, I'll go to the next slide. Organizational overview. Our board composition, you can see right now, we initially started with 9 board members. We have since lost 3 of those board members. Thankfully, we have some new members coming our direction. So I'm looking forward to engaging with the new members. So we have 6. There's Sharia Williams, Cominique Thomas, Kelly Johnson, Luella Webster, Joseph Adams, and Cheryl Ash. Training and development. The board's operation effectiveness is predicted on comprehensive training designed to build oversight, conflict resolution, and community engagement. So the first 2 bullets is stuff that we've already done. The Community Police Academy. Every board member has done that so far. Even our potential board member has already been through it. So I'm praying that that all works out. Citizen Police Academy, as far as the ride-alongs, we had everybody has participated and at least started the ride-alongs. So that is in process. Now, this third bullet, we have not had the opportunity to get this started yet, but this training is quite intense, and it's quite a bit that needs to go into this for us to really pull it off. So I'm looking for the right facilitator to do this type of training, and that's something that's coming in this year. Okay, next slide, please. All right, let's look at the complaint statistics and analysis. So we track when the complaint comes in, what type of complaint it was, and how we engaged with that complainant. So in Q1, we had 2 complaints. Thankfully, in 2025, so far, we're at the same number. And that's to be commended. The police should be commended for that, because people are starting to find out who our board is and how we operate. And to only have 2 complaints this year is really good, and we only had 2 last year. Q3, we had 3 complaints. or quarter two, I'm sorry, we had 3 complaints. Quarter three, we had 8 complaints. And that picked up quite a bit because, in the summer month, it seems like there's more activity in the community. And that's why the uptick is there. Quarter four, we had 3 complaints. So some of the complaints that come through are unfounded. Some of them may not be necessarily something that needs to go to the police department for review. And that is what we ran into this year, this past year, that there was a lot of information that came through the desk that once you thoroughly investigate it and really open your eyes to it, there's some stuff there that didn't add up. So it didn't make it to the police department. Let's go to the next slide. Demographic of complaints. We had a little over 37% were African American. There were other, which was a little over 6%. White was about 50%. The nature of the complaints that we had come through, one was property handling. We had 2 that were complaining about biased policing, 3 that were use of force, and the biggest portion of this graph here is procedural violations, which was 7 different complaints of that nature. Because that gives you a breakout of the nature of the complaints. Let's go to the next slide. Complaint statistics and analysis. We logged every single call that came through. If it was a complaint, it got logged. And some of them, doesn't matter if it's founded or unfounded, they still get logged. Everybody gets the same attention to detail. I still investigate. I do all my due diligence to make sure that every citizen is heard and that their information is ultimately going to be shared with the board. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Policy recommendations, strategic framework. So these are the areas where the review board has established its foundational structure. We have a structure on how we receive a complaint, how we log that complaint, how it's stored, how it's filed, and how it's completed, followed all the way through to the end. So we wanted to make sure that that foundational work was there. Some of the things that we are working on now is looking at bias mitigation, developing protocols to address disparities in policing. And there's areas where it has not hit our office yet, but we know that there's areas where anybody at any job could do better in this area. Okay, use of force policies, which is an area where we got a few complaints in. We're trying to find ways to make that better. And I can't wait to put these cases through to the review board so they can look at them and become the ultimate judge on if they need to be reevaluated. Okay. Community policing models. This is really proposals to enhance neighborhood engagement and build trust. So I want to make sure that the board has feet on the ground and is in the community and engaging the citizens of South Bend. I think it was one thing to have this in concept, but to actually put this in place is a whole different arena. And it requires a lot of people putting the information out in the community. So right now, we have a Facebook page, we have a city website where you can file a complaint. All of those things were launched in 2024, and we're excited to see the growth of those things in the community. Collaborative partnerships, you can kind of see we're working on things there. The CPRB intends to works closely with the South Bend Police Department. I have not had any impedances. I've not had any blocks. So far, I'm able to get through and get to the table, and I look forward to that growing and expanding. Let's see here. As we look at the Common Council, obviously we're working closely with the Common Council. I present my information to the Common Council. You all get my reports for attendance and things of that nature. And so far, we've been blessed to have good attendance. We're also working with academic institutions and things of that cycle and the Boys and Girls Club to establish a more robust community engagement. I can go to the next slide. Okay. Outreach, youth engagement forums, faith community roundtables. One will be held this Friday. Multilingual outreach. We wanted to make sure that the website could do multilingual outreach. And it was confirmed that there's, multiple languages on the City of South Bend's website. So as well as my signs, the information I take out is in Spanish and in English. And if there's another language that was needed, I could get that printed out and make sure that it's accessible to everyone. We're ADA compliant. Being in the Human Rights Commission, I've learned way too much about ADA compliance as well, but we are ADA compliant on our website and the language are there, and it's 24 hours a day. If anybody wants to file a complaint, the office is closed. They can go straight to the website and do that. Even if they wanted to file a commendation to say something positive about the police department, they could do that as well. Next slide, please. Okay. This is the budget and resources. So there was not a huge budget in 2024. You can kind of see that from what's listed there. But that is going to change in 2025. There's going to be ability to do a few more things in 2025. And one of those resource development points that I want to highlight is the partnership for Nicole, because we partnered with Nicole already and we are official members of that National Oversight Association. So the budget is just what it is, $100,000, slightly over $100,000. So we hope to, in 2025, we can have a different budget to work with, which we do. Next slide, please. Goals and objectives. Operational excellence. I believe that any complaint that comes through to the CPRB should be treated with dignity, respect. It should be thoroughly investigated. It should go through all the processes. Nobody should question, is the board doing its job? So I've met with people in the community and gone to the sites where their complaint occurred. I've taken pictures, I've investigated, I've gone the extra mile to make sure that they realize somebody's there for them and going to go to the table and speak up on their behalf. Community trust building, organizing dialogue sessions and implement restorative practices. This is something that we on every front need to do, not just on the police department, but in the community. And I want to make sure that that's something that we push hard to make sure that those practices are in our community. Impact measurements. We are going to measure everything we do. So from the time a complaint comes in, there's a time clock that is running that I want to make sure within a 60-day window or less. My goal is 45 days to be able to respond to that person with an adjudication from the CPRB board so that they can have their questions answered, or even provide information that says, hey, we haven't answered your question, but we're working on your problem. I think that's very necessary from this board. And the police department is currently on a 60-day window, and they can extend that by requesting an extension. But it is my goal as the director of this board to make sure that that 45-day policy is our standard, okay? Policy implementation, advanced recommendations to improve policing. So that would go straight to the chief once the board makes an adjudication or a judgment. That information will be pushed on to the chief. It is not our job to discipline police officers, but it is our job to make suggestions and to advise the police chief. Next page, please. All right, conclusion. So achievements at a glance. The online portal is in place. 226 hours of training is already in place. We've already done it. We've hosted public meetings. We're developing a comprehensive training curriculum, which was already in place from day one that the board was appointed. So that training is going. And looking at 2025, we can't wait to go from transition from organizing to foundational work and doing the real work of the board and making sure we can review cases and citizens' voices are heard clearly. Okay, that's all I have for today. Are there any questions or?
All right, council members. Yes, Council Member Davis.
Yes. First of all, Reverend King, thank you so much for what you've been doing.
I appreciate it. It's because the dream come true in a lot of areas. Two things. One with the changes with the safety board. Um, what has been your talks regarding the police with that? And then number two, what have you been able to talk to other cities who have a review board? What cities have you been able to talk with and met with, and what ideas are you bringing back?
Good. Okay. As far as the whole transition from the safety board of public safety to the merit board, that is really not my call. I am going to make a suggestion though, that our information should be shared with them as well. I don't know how that's all going to play out just yet because it's not fully operating and functional yet. But that is the goal, is to at least be able to share that information with them. As far as getting out to other boards, I spent an extensive amount of time in Kalamazoo, Michigan, sitting with their board, going to their hearings, going through the processes. Now, they would kick me out at certain times because there was executive sessions. So I didn't get to hear all of their executive session, but I was there and able to operate with that board and to glean a lot of information from them. They had a little bit of a healthier food on their plate, as I should say, because they were both police and fire. But that board gave me a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom on how to get this board set up and how to operate. They literally handed their playbook to me and said, here's some information, make it yours. All right.
Follow up real quick. There were police and fire when it
Mm.
comes down to the citizen review board too?
That's right. Yeah, they
Yeah.
sure were.
Okay. I'd like to talk to you further about that.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I have a question.
Okay, Councilwoman White,
Okay,
then I'll go
thank you.
back to you. Councilwoman White?
Thank you for your presentation. I just want to circle back to the first part of your presentation. You had indicated that because the board was not ready to move forward in regards to having the various positions, but most importantly, the training. So you did have some complaints.
Yes.
And so what was the time frame that once have you begun to address those complaints? And how did you communicate that back with those who, filed a complaint?
Well, with the 16 people that complained, I had to follow through with them and go ahead and process the investigation just as if the board was going to get it the next day. So that information is still pending right now, but in our next board meeting on the 20th of March, pending that board meeting goes forward and we have a quorum, those 16 cases will be released to the board. Now, we will not be able to move through 16 cases as fastly as I would like to because they're going to have to recover a whole year. But it will take us a little bit of time to work through that process of getting through those 16 cases. And then adding the 2025 case into that will make 17. So we have a little bit of work on our hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my second question is, you said that even looking at the cases and if a recommendation has not been reached to deal with it from a different perspective, or if you're making recommendations to the police department on policy,
Mhm.
how does that work and what's the time frame? And do you have a sense of the time you indicated the number of cases, and the areas, but how do you continue to move forward with that? And then how do you get the response back? And what do you do with the response?
Right. That's a great question.
Mhm.
So, and then we're at the beginning phases of this, so we'll have to kind of work through some of those nuances. But the goal is once that 45-day investigation once that investigation is over and we hit our 45-day mark or less, I should say, we submit that to the review board to review it and make a recommendation. Then it will be my job to take that recommendation straight to the chief and explain to him what the board meant and how that recommendation should play out based on their advisory council to him. So that should not take a long time. I'm anticipating 50 days or less to get that information to the board or to the police chief. But with 16, it is going to take a little bit of work because I was unable, due to the mandatory training, to funnel that information to them in small increments. So we do have some catch-up work to do, but we're going to get through it.
email you some.
Okay.
Ones. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Gooden Rogers?
Yes, I would like to know, is there a set number of hours that each person will have to complete?
Of training hours?
Yes.
There is not a set amount of hours because the initial training is you have to go to the Citizens Police Academy. That's not really a mandatory training on the review board. But in order to get to the ride-alongs, you have to have the Citizens Police Academy. So that was one of the things that kind of came up where we thought maybe we could do the ride-alongs first and get the board operating, but it didn't make sense to skip that step. So there's no set amount of training hours that you need, but I can tell you it's a lot of training. If I had to really account for the training that I've done myself, reading the police manual backwards and forwards, it would be in the hundreds and hundreds of hours. Yeah.
Okay, wait, I have one more. I'm sorry. My next question is, will you be able to do like some seminars or something once like the Martin Luther King Center open, maybe on a Saturday or something? Take your group there so that people that cannot come here or where you at to file their complaints so that they will know how to and be located in an area at least once in a while so they can file.
That's right. I would absolutely love to do that. And that's a part of that Mobile Office Friday initiative. And I also will invite the board to come to something like that because I think when you have 9 additional people, with myself making 10, it would make it a lot easier to disseminate that information to a large group like the Dream Center. So that's something that we want to do and will do.
Okay, well, that's District 2, so let me know when you're ready.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Warner?
Yeah, this is a comment I don't want to answer now, but when we passed this, there was concerns about the level of training that is in the ordinance, and it's a long list, as I know you know this ordinance, and much like your bylaws and your operating procedures, it's a living, breathing thing that we kind of knew we'd be changing. And so as you get a little further down the road, I think some recommendation back to council on not only training, but other tweaks in the ordinances would be appreciated as you move along. And we take that and would like that feedback. I know I've talked to one of the board members and they're like, Troy, that's a lot of training. And I said, and we kind of went, some of it was off Nicole's advice and some other things that the community wanted, but
Right.
It's a lot of hours for the folks I know for a citizen member, and they all have day jobs and families and everything else. So.
That's right. And I want to say this in response to your statement is we should really applaud them because they put a lot of training in. And if you look at my email list from the lawyers to them, there is a lot of additional emails going to them.
Yeah, I said this is the time they get more training than these council members get.
Yes, Councilwoman Thomas Morgan?
I just have a comment too, and it really is to thank the citizen members who are committed to this. It is a lot of training. I share the concerns that Councilman Warner raised as we were working on the ordinance, the list of trainings, and I think to add to the questions would be, and your recommendations would be what recommendations would you have for, what trainings are essential, required, and then optional or secondary? And so it just is, right off the bat, it's a lot. And so really want to thank everyone for their commitment to this. It's not like you're on this board for life, but it's a lot of training for for really a pretty short commitment period. And so just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Niskoski?
Thank you. And thank you for putting this presentation together for us. This is really a great measurement for us. And it certainly shows the hard work that you've been doing. The 45 days that we've all been referring to, and this is a volunteer board. And as you know, I finally found the replacement for the lady that wasn't able to.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. to be able to serve. But with the 45 days, 16 complaints, just how many hours a week does this volunteer board, who also has a family, probably works, what does that time commitment look like?
It's going to be quite aggressive at the beginning. Now, I'm not going to push them too hard. It's hard enough to find the board members that we have. And I don't want to push the common council to have to go back out and, well, Charles pushed us too hard and we all are done. I don't want to get to that place. But I want to make sure that we're aggressive about getting these done without overreaching. So we'll break these up into 3 cases at a time, segments. They'll be presented all 16, but we'll break them up into 3 parts. So we'll do 3 cases at a time until we whittle through all of them. So that'll take a little bit of time, but I'm anticipating this board is ready to do it. There are hours now. We meet, the ordinance requires us to meet quarterly. We meet every month. So that's the schedule for the remainder of the year, is to meet every month. If something comes up that is an extenuating circumstance, we would add an additional meeting in to make sure we can meet that demand. So right now, we haven't had to do that, but every month is the schedule as we stand.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for all your work towards this.
Thank you, Mr. King. My question was, I know that we were having a challenge just filling those vacant spots, and I put out a call to all of the council members who had a vacancy on the board. So thank you, council members who've been working hard to get those seats filled, because this is a very important board. One of the things that, in the beginning, it was a lot of controversy and people, police didn't want it. How has this helped to bridge the gap between the police and the citizens?
Yes, I can say this, that initially I even had misconceptions. After doing my ride-alongs and being in the police car with the police officers and seeing how much mental health they deal with, and seeing our fire department have to go in for multiple mental health situations and how much they deal with. Now, I worked all 3 shifts, so I was on days and I worked the midnight shift as well. So I've seen a lot of stuff that actually ease some of the misconceptions that I had. Now, is any job perfect? No company, no job anywhere is perfect. So there's always going to be things you can enhance. But I think the police department can see that I'm serious about helping the community, as well as they can also see that I'm not on a witch hunt for them. So if they do something wrong, I'm going to be the first person to stand up and say it's wrong, and we'll hold them accountable for it. But I'm not looking for something that's not there after actually engaging with them and being a part of the processes on their day-to-day shifts. Yeah, I was gonna say, I see from a different set of eyes now. Yeah.
It is, I've done the citizen review, the Citizens Police Academy, and it really does the board good to go through that whole process, and then also be able to just see from a different lens and what it's like to be a police officer in our area, and to be able to be a citizen. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for your presentation, and we wish you much success and continue forward. Thank you. All right. I will now entertain a motion to resolve into the committee of the whole.
So move.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll, or Clerk Matthew.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Here.
Aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Nitskowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Council Vice President Tomas Morgan.
Aye.
Council President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Motion passes.
Committee of the Whole is now in session. This is the portion of the council's meeting where bills are given a second reading and a public hearing before a committee made up of all 9 council members. All bills set for this second reading and public hearing have previously been given a first reading and a committee hearing prior to this evening's meeting. In addition, we will hear from the chairperson of the standing committee where the bill was discussed and the results of that discussion. If the proposed ordinance is a zoning ordinance, a report from staff member will be given. In all other situations, the formal presentation on the proposed ordinance will immediately follow the committee report. The formal presentation shall be untimed. As provided by Section 2-11D of the City Code, immediately following the formal presentation on the bill, council members will have an opportunity to ask preliminary questions of the staff and the presenters. Then members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the council in the public hearing portion. Following the public portion, the discussion shall then return to the council, where the members of the council debate, ask questions, and make motions on the bill under consideration. Clerk, will you please give Bill 7-25 a second reading?
Public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 18, Article 5 to update the procedures for vacation of public ways and public places.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, there is, Chair. That was heard in Public Works and Property Vacation this afternoon, and it was given a favorable recommendation to the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. I ask that you state your name and address and share with us your presentation.
Yes, good evening, council members. Chris Dressel, City of South Bend Community Investment with offices on the 14th floor of this building. I'm joined by Jenna Throw, City of South Bend Legal Department. So I have a brief presentation for you, but wanted to note that it's been a process of a couple of years to get to this point, and so it's really, this is the presentation today, and the conversation is a part of a continued conversation to continue to improve the efficiencies of the ordinance and the right-of-way vacation process. So back in May of 2024, we appeared in front of the council with the major updates to the ordinance, and so what we have today is a proposed updates to that ordinance, and we have 4 categories for that. And just a quick look at the highlights of the ordinance for 2024. I mean, much of this was I think driven by a desire to make this more efficient for all involved, and to be able to make contact with the petitioners early in the process, and bring some efficiencies to the way that so all the different tasks are organized with the city, and help while being a guide for the petitioner. It's always meant to be a petitioner-driven process or petitioner-led process. We're merely providing technical support. We're not taking any sides in the request. So the first in these, again, looking at 4 categories, one of them was just simply a correction of a Scrivener's error. The second item for the update is just the fee payment. There had previously been a payment of $150 to file with the clerk's office. With the 2024 ordinance, we added a $300 fee to process for the Board of Public Works, and that covered the map, legal description, and the 150-foot radius, as well as assistance from the legal department to put together the ordinance for the petitioner. So originally we had that set up as a one-time payment of $450. We're proposing to separate that into the appropriate times during the process. So you pay $300 to engineering, and then later you pay the $150 to the clerk's office. And also relating to the fee payments, the 2024 ordinance had called for paying any overage to the clerk for the filing if there was a need to do additional work. And that was going to the Ordinance Violations Bureau clerk. We've changed that now to go directly back to the clerk's office, make that more efficient for reimbursement. The envelope preparation, the ordinance, this was not added by the 2024 ordinance. This pre-existed that, but there's a note that 2 sets of envelopes had to be provided by the petitioner. And the second was in the event there was a second hearing, and so we've altered that so that the petitioner is only responsible for a single set. And if the second set is necessary, then we would move forward with that. But it's not initially they'll only be preparing one set. And then the last piece, there is a stage in the ordinance that asks for the petitioner to get a confirmation from each of the adjacent property owners to the vacated area. So they're been made aware. This differs from the 150-foot radius. This is actually just the handful of folks that are adjacent to the right of way. So the 2024 ordinance had put in a requirement that 100% of the adjacent property owners confirm receipt of this notice. But I think there was some further discussion that there could be some scenarios where perhaps there's one of the property owners that's not reachable or difficult to reach, and that could result in a cancellation of the request before it gets to a hearing. So I think we wanted to adjust that accordingly. And so that change is now, it's no longer 100%, but just a simple majority, so 51%. And I think we're hopeful that given the process is trying to overall be a little more petitioner friendly, that we can have conversations early on in the process as we receive the first notification of the vacation requests through a pre-application form. We can have conversation with the petitioner and just make them aware of the signature requirement and just get a sense of where the relationship stands with all the property owners and their ability to get that confirmation. And so just a note then, we think of it turns, it's no longer imperative. It's still very important to the process. Obviously, we're talking about a vacation request, so that's a permanent change to the property, to your property lines. So there's still an importance in having that contact or conversation with all those that are directly impacted. So that covers the scope of the 2025 ordinance update proposal. Here again, Jenna, throw with me for any questions you might have about the request. Thank you.
Okay, council members, any preliminary questions of the petitioner? Councilmember Lee.
Although we talked about it in committee, how much time will this save residents who want to get an alley vacated? Estimate of by making everything simple.
I think the value is having a more personal contact through the process and really understanding everything that's required up front, and provide some efficiencies there in terms of time. And I think at the back end, when they're actually going through the hearing process here with the council, I think there'll be a better understanding of what their request is and what the impact is. And so hopefully there won't be any, again, the difficulty for all involved, including the council members. There won't be folks that are concerned or upset or frustrated with the process. So I don't know if I can offer what the efficiency would be in terms of time, but I think there's a gain definitely in terms of understanding and sort of ability to know the impact at an early stage of the process.
Thank you for making it more efficient and thinking about the residents through this process. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, I only had a recommendation that I shared with the chair in regards and also with administration that are standing before us. If we could come up with a flow chart, because you look at it, it's a lot of language and steps and still share the language. But if we could put in more in a flow chart, I think it would be a little bit easier to say, okay, I've done this, it's like a checklist. So
Yes.
I don't know, that's just a recommendation.
No, thank you. I think that had been, it's been, we've been at this for a little while. And that had been, at one point in the process, we were working more visually with the flow chart. So it would be, I think, be easy to restore that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's really not a question, but I'd just like to thank you for the follow-up. I think that the pre-application in the packet that's handed out and that front work will help eliminate frustrated residents from thinking they got partway through the process and didn't know about X, Y, or Z. This lays it out for them. And I think it'll be a much more productive for them for understanding and then knowing that you'll be there to help them guide through that process. And then it's so much more streamlined. And I would just really thank you for the work. I know it's been a couple years that we've been going back and forth, but I really want to thank you for all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing nobody else, at this time, we'll go to the public hearing portion of the bill. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the council, beginning with members of the public in favor, each limited to 5 minutes. Any members of the public wishing to speak on Bill 7-25? Please approach.
I do not see any members from the public in person or online that wishes to speak in favor of the bill.
You agree, but no?
Is it mic off?
Is there any member of the public wishing to speak against the bill?
I do not see anyone in person or online wishing to speak in opposition.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing on Bill 7-25. Bring it back to council. Any comments, discussion, or a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to send, would you want to make a comment? Yes.
Comment, just a quick comment. I know that a number of people worked on this for years and they need to be acknowledged. And that includes our councilwoman, Sheila Nitskotsky. This was a real passion project of hers. And so I thank her for the amount of time and work that she put into this, and to the team, to you, Chris, and others on the team, Jenna, legal, our clerk, Bianca Tirado as well, thinking through all the fees and that. So anyway, just want to thank you all.
And now I would like to make a motion to send Bill 7-25 to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, can you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Dr. Davis. Aye. Councilmember Niskoski.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers. Councilmember White. Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Bill 725 will go to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Seeing no other bills at this time, I will entertain a motion to rise from the committee of the whole.
So move.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Clerk, can you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Niskoski.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right. The full council is now back in session, and this is the portion of our meeting where bills are given a third reading and action is taken regarding the bills that were heard during the committee of the whole. Clerk Toronto, would you please give Bill 0725 a third reading?
Third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 18, Article 5 to update the procedures for vacation of public ways and public places.
All right, Counselor Warner, is there a recommendation from the committee of the whole?
The committee of the whole brings a bill with a favorable recommendation.
I will now entertain a motion regarding Bill 07-25.
Move for passage.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Bill 07-25 passes unanimously. All right, we're now on resolutions. Resolutions. This is the portion of the council meeting where the common council hear bills filed as proposed resolutions. The title of each proposed resolution is read by the city clerk. A report from the committee chairperson of the standing committee to which the bill was referred to for an advisory review and recommendation is then given. And during the public portion on each proposed resolutions, members of the public are invited to address the council. We ask that you please give your name, address, and comments on the bill. And if you have any questions, they will be addressed by the presenter during their rebuttal. Each member of the public is limited to 5 minutes, with those speaking in favor going first, followed by those in opposition, then a 5-minute rebuttal for the presenter of the bill. Clerk Toronto, please give Resolution 2514 a read.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, designating certain areas within the City of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as 425 South Michigan Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46601, an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 2-year vacant building tax abatement for Penny Hill Homes LLC.
Can I make the recommendation that we hear both of them at the same time?
Yes, I second that.
So move.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner. Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right, so we're hearing 2514 and 2515 all at the same time, then we will vote separately on each one. Thank you, sir. Ask that you give your name and address.
1 moment. I need to read 2515.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, designating certain areas within the City of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as 425 South Michigan Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46601, an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 10-year real property tax abatement for Penny Hill Homes LLC.
All right, thank you, sir.
Eric Lovich, Director of Growth and Opportunity, offices on the 14th floor of this building. President Lee and members of the Common Council, thank you for your consideration of these tax abatements that I will be presenting to you. The first group of tax abatements is for what we know in South Bend to be the Inwoods building. This building is a large commercial space located at 425 South Michigan Street. For many years, it was a Sears and Roebuck store in the first half of the 20th century. For about 40 years, it was then the Inwoods store or the Inwoods grocery store. Throughout the 1990s, just a few tenants here and there, and it has essentially been vacant for the last 25 years since 1999. On your screen, you'll see that where it's located, it's on Michigan Street, just across from the post office. The picture on the right is what the state that the building was in just a year and a half ago or so. It was bought in 2022 by a group named Penny Hill Homes LLC. Penny Hill Homes is a small-scale developer based in South Bend, female-owned company. They took on this project knowing that the important aspect that it plays in the community, right by the Monroe Park neighborhood, understanding that the South Michigan corridor is in need of redevelopment and investment. So they've taken on this challenge. Here's a few pictures of what it was in the past. I mentioned it was a Sears and Roebuck store. It was built in the 1920s. Just to provide you a quick overview of the project. So the Penny Hill Homes Group is looking to invest about $1.44 million in this project. It's basically first phasing would be bringing life to the first floor and the lower level. Their desire is to really open up the storefront, provide foot traffic on this area of South Michigan. The desire is to create a space that welcomes small businesses, artists, kind of a community, feeling to the building. The Penny Hill Homes Group owns the rest of the buildings near this to the south and the one right to the north. And if you go there, you'll see it's the Monroe Arts building. There's the Rocky Button right there. They've done a really nice job of activating these spaces, making them places that people want to go. And this is kind of one of the last steps in this process that they're going through. The tax abatements that we're presenting to you, there's two different abatements. The first one is a vacant building tax abatement. Under this tax abatement, we're actually abating the current taxes. So the building as is, which is vacant, is bringing in about $6,700 a year in property taxes. So we are proposing for your consideration a 2-year vacant building tax abatement, which would basically allow Penny Hill to take that money that they're paying in current taxes and dedicate it toward their project. The second resolution that you will consider is a 10-year tax abatement. So our traditional tax abatements look at the incremental assessed value from a project. So if a company or an investor were to invest a certain amount of money into real property, the new value that is taxed after completing the project is what would be abated. So at the expiration of the vacant building tax abatement, they'll continue to pay the $6,700. What we're proposing is that we abate the new taxes from this project, the new taxes that this project creates over the next 10 years. You'll see that even though this is a very aggressive tax abatement, that after this project is completed, even within the 10 years, which is the abatement period, that we're bringing in more money through property tax revenues than we would be otherwise. So I will pause there. Sarah Hill from Penny Hill Homes is here, and we would both be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hill at 1512 East Wayne Street in South Bend.
Council members, do you have any questions? Councilwoman, Vice President Rachel Thomas Morgan.
Thank you so much for being here and taking on this challenge, Ms. Hill. I had contacted Mr. Glavich with these questions and I wasn't able to make it to committee meeting, so forgive me if this is redundant from committee. But Eric or Sarah, I was wondering if you could just, or Eric, could you describe for me? So the question that I had posed to you earlier was the 10-year 100%. I couldn't recall another one that we've done at 100%. At least on my time on council, we've seen some graduated at 5%, or maybe some 195%. But could you explain the context for why?
This project is part of a larger group of projects that sought READY funds. So through the READY 2.0 process, Penny Hill Homes partnered with Historic Development, which is another female-owned small development firm that's come before the committee before, and the committee's approved tax abatements for them. Both of them partnered with Devereaux Peters, will be building the Monroe. Kind of strengthen numbers in terms of their ready application. So the ready application requires basically a city match in terms of a commitment. So we look at different mechanisms for how we can support projects. Tax abatements and the estimated tax savings go toward that public match and that public commitment. In order for us to really strengthen their application and maximize the level of city support that they needed in order to submit their application, we looked at doing a 100% tax abatement for this project. You're right, this is, at least in the 2.5 years that I've been here, we haven't done a 100% straight abatement. However, we got close with the Spenner Garage, which was historic Hearthstone property on Wayne Street that we did recently. We did a 100% for the first 5 years and then 95% for the second 5 years. I ran some of the numbers here. If we had applied that similar abatement schedule toward this, I think the difference was only about $7,000 in terms of tax savings. So we were comfortable continuing with this proposal for a full 10-year, 100% abatement.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? We did a lot of talk in committee, so if people wonder why there's not a lot of questions, I just want to go back to that number of right now we're only getting $6,764 in taxes. After this project, it'll be $35,000, $189.
So our estimates are based on, we've gone through how we've calculated estimates before. So we look at the hard dollar costs that go into a project.
Mhm.
In this case, it was $1.4 million. And we have to figure, that's really the only data point that we have. So, what is a good estimate for what the new assessed value might be? In this case, we decided that 60% of the hard dollar cost would be a good way to evaluate what the new assessed value would be. So that was the number that these tax estimates are based on.
Okay. So when we look at it 10 years from now,
In 10 years, you might expect that the number would,
a lot more.
Well, there's the state's property tax cap is applied as a credit. So when we look at abatements, it basically is eating into that circuit breaker cap credit. So actually, in reality, we end up after 10 years receiving more in property tax revenues than we would have otherwise, even though we're giving a 100% abatement. And that's because the circuit breaker cap is lessened, or the credit is lessened a little bit because the higher assessed value, the gross assessed value of the property is what's used to calculate the property tax circuit breaker cap.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. At this time, we'll go to the public. Clerk Tirado, is there anyone here willing to speak in favor or online for Resolution 2514 or 2515?
I do not see any members of the public in person or online wishing to speak in favor.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? I ask that you state your name for the record and
Yes.
address.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana. I'm not necessarily against it, but I have a couple of questions because the images they showed here on these slides, like the one we're looking at right now, and the storefronts they were talking about, I'm guessing that this encompasses more than just what's in the photo there. He said something about property going, adjacent to it. So is this like the Whitmer McNeese old buildings right there on Michigan Street? Is that what it is? And the old newsstand buildings?
Eric, I think it's right next. The Whitmer McNeese was on a corner, and it's the next building, correct?
So thank you for the question. It's a good question. If you were to look at this parcel in the past, it was one giant parcel. Penny Hill is recently subdivided, so there are 4 unique parcels there. So this tax abatement is only that only the building you see. So the tax abatement would not apply to either the buildings on the south or the north side of it.
So you had said something about a 2-year vacant property, but is that property vacant? Has it been?
This one
vacant
is,
in
yeah.
the last 2 years?
Yeah, so the building here, which was the big building, it's 50,000 square feet. That's the one that's been vacant since 1999. So the abatement would not apply. I appreciate the gentleman's question. So the abatement does not apply to the Monroe Arts Building, the Rocky Button, or even if you look at that black sided building to the right in the picture, it wouldn't apply to that one either.
Thank you. So anyone else?
I see no one else willing to speak.
At this time, the public hearing portion is now closed. Council members, you can make comments if you want, or I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to move 25-14 for adoption.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Warner. Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right. Resolution 2514 has now passed. There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner. Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers. Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
2515 has now passed. Clerk Toronto, would you give Resolution 2516 a reading?
Resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, designating certain areas within the City of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as 25471 Cleveland Road, South Bend, Indiana, 46628, an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 7-year real property tax abatement for Blueprint LLC.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, 2516 was heard in community investment this afternoon and comes forward with a favorable recommendation.
All right. Petitioner, would you state your name and address and your proposal?
Eric Glavich, Director of Growth and Opportunity, offices on the 14th floor of this building. For your consideration is another declaratory resolution for tax abatement. This concerns a parcel on the very far northwest side of South Bend. It's actually property which has been recently annexed into the city. It's currently empty space with a house on the southern end of it. It's on the screen. It's the area that's outlined in blue. This property in this project will be the new headquarters for a local company named HRP Construction. HRP Construction has been based in South Bend for, I believe, about 40 years. They currently have different sites operating throughout the region, and with this project, they would be consolidating all of their operations to a new headquarters in South Bend. This includes storage, maintenance, offices, everything that they do will be located in this new facility. Their total investment for this project would be $7.3 million. They currently have about 48 full-time employees, so they'll retain all of those employees, but they also estimate that they'll be hiring 6 new full-time employees. The petitioner has indicated that their current operations, they're at capacity, and that kind of creates a challenge for them to expand and hire new employees. This would be a 7-year real property tax abatement. So kind of just as a refresher, the new property taxes, because of the project is what we're talking about in terms of this abatement. This property currently brings in about $6,000 estimated in property taxes. That these are estimates if it had been in the city. So even though it had been annexed into the city and had been part of the county prior, our estimates are if it had been in the city. So over the time of this abatement, their total estimated tax liability would be $926,000. This abatement would abate an estimated $500,000 roughly. So they would still be paying over $400,000 in taxes after this project. Again, it's really important to be able to incentivize these companies that want to stay in South Bend. So we ask that you would consider supporting this declaratory resolution. And I know that members of HRP are here if you have any questions.
Yes. We ask that you state your name and address for the record, please.
Nancy Napick, 5777 Cleveland Road, South Bend, 46628.
Jared Baker with HRP Construction, same address at 577 Cleveland Road, South Bend, Indiana.
All right. Is there anything you guys would like to add to the presentation?
Yeah. So as Eric said, we're a local company. The 48 employees we have is a mix between our, I guess we'd call them the core HRP employees, and then we're also a union firm. So we employ union operators and laborers that do all the trade work in the field throughout the season. That's a kind of what we call that an average number of that. It kind of fluctuates up and down, but some of those aren't always full length seasons, with our winter season being what we do. But yeah, we've been in South Bend since 1980. This will be our third location in South Bend, and we're proud of that. The other thing I think we showed earlier was that this property, one of our big things with the work we do in the water and wastewater industry, is there's a very beautiful city of South Bend water tower as a backdrop to it. So overall, it's just a great opportunity, I think, for us to consolidate all of our operations as we've really outgrown our building now, have a need to bring on some more some staff, but we just don't have the staff or the place inside of our building. And as Eric said, we've been renting different facilities which are used to do equipment maintenance and storage. As our current facility only has one maintenance bay, and this would expand that significantly for us.
Yeah, when we were looking at property, we decided we wanted to stay in South Bend. We wanted to still be a South Bend company, and the water tower sort of iced it for us as for what we wanted.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Council members, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Again, could you share what have been some of your successes or why your company has continued to grow so fast? And again, we thank you for staying in South Bend. You shared some of that today. Could you just share that again today?
We've grown organically. We haven't gone out to solicit, big contracts. We solicit, most of our bids are public works projects. Locally, we do support some projects at Notre Dame. We've done quite a few here in South Bend. Diamond Avenue is one of our successes. And we just want to stay here in the community. We're South Bend people at heart, and we're glad that they annexed us into the city. And we were talking about the road right in front of our property is sewer that we put in. So it's gonna be cool that we're gonna hook up right to our own lines. But
I think as we discussed earlier, this industry we're in has a pretty big barrier of entry, with it being government work. Where we're seeing a little bit of dying competition in that market, and we're trying to remain strong to keep reinvesting. But we take a lot of pride in the people and our company culture here. And we've built up a great reputation, we feel. Sure seems that way. Hope to continue doing that and keep growing here.
as we said earlier, we're public bids, and it's a low bid process, and we'll bid for projects. And it's nice to hear from the cities that we work with that when we win a bid, they're going, great. HRP's doing it. We have confidence in them. And that feels very good to us for our culture.
Thank you. What's a dying business for others is a booming business for you. And I appreciate that. So thanks for staying in the city of South
Yeah,
Bend.
it's definitely not an exciting business.
I know, but hey, you're still doing it well.
It's
So I
sewer
appreciate
work.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But we've always said, think about it, in lots of parts of the world, people don't have running water.
Yeah,
And we turn the faucet on and we just automatically assume it comes from somewhere.
that's true.
And we take pride knowing that not our generation or the next generation or the next one, they'll still have that same running water that we get that pipe from. Which
I
is
agree.
a really good legacy.
Thank you again. Appreciate that.
Councilwoman Thomas Morgan.
Yes, thank you so much for staying in South Bend and continuing to invest in the city. I was just curious what your geographical footprint is. I mean, is it mainly in our region or even wider?
Yes, it's mainly in our region here. What we kind of say is, we like to be on a work region where everybody can go home at night. They don't have to stay in a hotel to do work. So typically, our South Bend is our only office. So with Eric, we have he said regionally. So like we have some storage yard in Mishawaka we rent. We have other facilities in South Bend we rent. Trying to contain all of those here. As far as project base that we go after, I would say west out to Michigan City area would be a far west limit, LaGrange to the east, Rochester to the south, and we don't get into Michigan a lot. But,
Yeah.
we do some work with our friends with the Pokagon band in Michigan, and that's pretty otherwise limited in Michigan.
Thank you, very helpful.
Anyone else? All right, you guys shared the 6 new employees. That payroll will end up being about close to $500,000, and the 48 full-time employees, I think was it 3 million? About $3.2 million. So we're grateful for these type of jobs to be able to come, especially to the first district. So welcome to the first district. I want people to see that right now the taxes on that land is only $6,000, but in 10 years it becomes 810. In 20 years is 2 million. That's a great investment. How much? I didn't see. I can't recall how much the new project is going to cost you.
It's a-
That's right. I got it written down here and I didn't see it. $7 million investment, where we're only getting $6,000 of taxes right now. So thank you for thinking about staying in South Bend, and we're so grateful that you want to grow here. And with that being said, we will now go to the public hearing. Clerk Toronto, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor of Resolution 2516?
I do not see anyone in person or online wishing to speak in favor of the bill.
Is there anyone that wants to speak in opposition?
I do not see anyone in person or online wishing to speak in opposition of the bill.
At this time, the public hearing for Resolution 2516 is now closed. Council members, you can make comments, or I will entertain a motion. Oh, yes.
Yes, coming from the past union shop myself, I just want to commend you because it's not easy to make those payments for those benefits, but you do provide health for your workers, make sure that they retire in dignity and that they can support their family with dignity. So I want to make sure that that's pointed out because that's a heavy lift in itself to pay those benefits. But in the end, as a family business, I can tell that it is all about South Bend. It's about helping those families. And at the end, everybody grows and you're supported by each other. So I want to commend you for that and your $7.3 million investment. And I wish you all the luck and continued.
Is making sure people work for us and they have a dignity when they retire. And
Absolutely.
the other thing is we're family. We want them all to go home safely.
Yep.
Safety's number one and
Yep.
quality's number one with our company. Want them to go home safely.
Because these are big, you guys have excavators. I mean, the equipment they have is huge. But anyway, I just want to thank you for that. And it means a lot to know that you're willing to stay in South Bend and make that investment and support our families. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Second.
All right, Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner, Vice President Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right, Resolution 2516 is now passed. Bills on first reading. Clerk Toronto, would you give Bill 0825 a first reading?
First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, authorizing the city to issue one or more series of its taxable economic development tax increment revenue bonds and approving and authorizing other actions in respect thereto in connection with the J.C. Hart Development Project.
All right, I will now entertain a motion to send Bill 08-25 to Personnel and Finances and third reading for March the 10th.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
To the restroom.
Move on.
He's not here.
Vice President Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
7 ayes.
All right. Bill 08-24 will be sent to Personnel and Finances. Thank you. Clerk Toronto, please give 0925 a first reading, sorry.
First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending ordinance number 11161-24, fixing the annual pay and monetary fringe benefits of sworn members of the South Bend Fire Department for calendar year 2025 to amend and clarify the salary classifications at section 2 of this ordinances.
All right, I will now entertain a motion to send Bill 0925 to Personnel and Finance and third reading for March the 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
7 ayes.
All right, 0925 will be sent to Personnel and Finances. Clerk Toronto, please give 1025 a first reading.
First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending ordinance number 11160-24, which fixes maximum salaries and wages of appointed officers and non-bargaining employees of executive departments of the City of South Bend for calendar year 2025 to make position changes in innovation and technology and the fire department.
I will now entertain a motion to send to Personnel and Finance for public hearing and third reading on March the 10th.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner, Vice President Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right. Bill 1025 will go to Personnel and Finances. 1125, give it a first reading.
First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending ordinance number 11155-24, which fixed maximum wages in Teamster employees for calendar year 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028 to add a full-time employee to one existing position.
All right, I will now entertain a motion to send 1125 to Personnel and Finances and for committee for public hearing and third reading on March the 10th, 2025.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner. Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right, 1125 will go to Personnel and Finances for March the 10th. Clerk Toronto, would you give 1225 a first reading?
First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana for budget transfers for various departments within the City of South Bend, Indiana for calendar year 2025.
I will now entertain a motion to send Bill 1225 to Personnel and Finance for third reading on 3/10.
So move.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner. Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right, 1225 will go to Personnel and Finance for March the 10th. Clerk Toronto, please give 1325 a first reading.
First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and city services operations for the calendar year 2025 of $1,464,798 from the general fund number 101-535,028 from the Parks and Recreation Fund number 201-5,000 from the Gift Donation Bequest Fund number 217-$655,000 from the Law Enforcement Continuing Education Fund number 220, $54,198 from the Central Services Fund number 222, $489,000 from the IT Innovation 311 Call Center Fund number 279, $350,000 from the Fire Department Capital Fund number 287, $9,425,000 from the Local Income Tax Economic Development Fund number 408, $250,000 from the Sewage Works Operation Fund number 641, and $82,500 from the Unemployment Compensation Fund 713.
Thank you, Clerk Toronto. I would like to send 13-25 to Personnel and Finance Committee for public hearing and third reading on March the 10th, 2025.
So moved.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner. Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right, 1325 will be sent to Personnel and Finance for March the 10th. We are now here at unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? I just want to say that as as unfinished business, that as we're moving forward, as council members, we're here because we've been entrusted with the responsibility of serving the people of this great city. And that duty requires us to work together, not just when we agree, but especially when we do not. Disagreements are a natural part of leadership, but how we handle those defines our effectiveness as a council and our commitment to the community. I just wanted to state that as one of my favorite books that I love to read deals with conflict, and it talks about brothers and sisters when you've been offended to go and talk to one another. It's my responsibility as president to foster, and my goal to foster an environment where every member of this council feels heard, valued, and respected. And moving forward, as we as a council will work diligently to ensure our roles and expectations for meetings are clearly defined and communicated. We have very pressing matters that is affecting our community, and we have to keep our focus on the residents of South Bend. And if we make mistakes, I ask that we give each other grace and an opportunity to correct our mistakes. Additionally, we recognize that there's some needs for our updates to our Chapter 2 of the city's municipal code, and we will thoroughly review and revise it as necessary. Our processes must reflect fairness, transparency, efficiency, so that we can best serve the people who elected us. House divided can't stand. Council divided cannot effectively lead. But if we are all willing to put aside past hurts and come together with a renewed commitment to collaboration, we can work effectively to move South Bend forward. Dr. King said in one of his books, Strength to Love, darkness can't drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And I'm asking as the president of the council for us to come together, talk about our issues, and work to move forward for our city. Thank you. Any new business?
I would like to just comment, the St. Margaret's had to walk a mile in her shoes. And it was very cold, which was probably appropriate for that event. But to date, they have raised about $100,000 as a result of that walk a mile in her shoes. And they have a new extension going up for the building over there. So I encourage anyone here, if you like St. Margaret's House, if you like their mission, helping women and children in our community, they do so much and they help so many. You can go to their website and you can donate to help them raise further funds. But it was a wonderful event, little cold, but walk a mile in her shoes and you end up at the right place to reach help. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're getting ready to go to privilege of the floor. And please understand this. We want privilege of the floor to be a place where everybody's voice is respected. So disrespectful, rude, or disruptive speech or actions will not be tolerated. Such speech or actions, as well as verbal attacks on any person, may result in the individual without notice forfeiting the remainder of his or her allotted time. Individuals who wish to address the council must state their name and their residential address, and individuals will be limited to 3 minutes only. The maximum time for this portion of the meeting shall be 30 minutes. Individuals shall not be permitted to address topics which the council has heard previously on the agenda, and the council president may assign a topic raised by an individual during the privilege of the floor to the appropriate council member, and or request the city clerk to contact a member of city administration for review, and topic assigned shall be responded to at the next council meeting. At this time, I ask that you state your name and address. And again, we welcome our residents to be able to talk to us. And now we'll go to the privilege of the floor.
Thank you. Sue Custom, 422 Kennedy Drive. Good evening, everyone. I stand before you today to urge all of us to reflect on how we move forward as a community. Our city faces pressing challenges, excessive debt, growing citizen concerns, and the need for thoughtful solutions. Yet what has become glaringly apparent is that the very body elected to address these issues is caught in internal conflict. Disagreements are natural. Debate is healthy, but disrespect, whether towards each other on the dais or towards citizens who take time out of their lives to speak, is not acceptable. Every resident and council person deserves to be heard and treated with dignity. We expect that from our children in classrooms. Surely we can expect it here. When decorum breaks down, so does trust, and trust is already fragile. Citizens are not admiring this council when it appears more focused on infighting than problem solving. We deserve leaders who demonstrate maturity, empathy, and cooperation. The current approach is not working. I'm especially concerned with the notion of self-policing through the Rules Committee. Frankly, it's seen as a farce. True accountability cannot come from insular processes that dismiss public input. Perhaps it's time to consider forming a Citizens Council Review Board, a body that ensures transparency and holds all of us to higher standards. Accountability should never be optional. We are at a crossroads. We will be a community divided by pettiness or one united in purpose. Leadership is not about being right. It's about doing what's right. Let's refocus on solutions, on addressing the debt, on listening to residents, and on governing with integrity that this city deserves. Because when bullying replaces collaboration, we all lose. But when respect guides our actions, we move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Yes, sir.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana. So I'm not as eloquent as Sue is. And I just wanted to come up here and say what I saw the other night at your Rules Committee meeting was appalling and disgusting. And from what I understand, some things that happened after the fact were even worse. And we expect you guys to act like adults. We expect you to act like leaders. You were elected to do so. And what I saw the other night was not adults. It was like a bunch of kindergartners. So you guys need to get your act together, period. Otherwise, maybe we do need a citizens review board, such as the one we formed for the police department, to take care of issues here, because I've been here for over a decade and I've watched many things get overlooked, and we're not going to get into those tonight, but we can discuss that some night. We can name a whole lot of them that still aren't resolved today from over a decade ago. And apparently, if y'all can't police yourself and make sure that things are handled, then citizens will need to step up and do that for you. I want to also clarify something with Mr. Palmer. At that particular meeting, one of the things that was being discussed was a council member not living within their district for well over 2 years. And I want you to clarify for me as I stand here tonight. So you said that you interpreted the law that if she had taken a leave from her residence, but she plans on moving back to that residence, then she can still remain in her seat and on this council. Is that true? Yes or no? That's what you stated. That's great, because you know what? I'm going to run for council because I own a house in South Bend and I've been called out many times. Why are you here complaining? You live in Mishawaka. Well, I lived in that house and I moved out, but I moved out temporarily. And I do plan to move back to the house. So next cycle, I'll be running for this council. And maybe we'll just get rid of one of the problems that we've seen on this council.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comment. State your name for the record, please.
Logan Foster, 1138 College Street. Last week, during the South Bend Common Council's Public Rules Committee meeting, Attorney Bob Palmer finally admitted what residents have known for years, that the South Bend Municipal Code has been in direct conflict with the open door law for far too long. Both the residents and the public access counselor were correct. Yet this council has yet to act. What will you, the legislative body, do to fix this blatant issue? For instance, why wasn't a bill presented tonight to immediately bring this ordinance into compliance? Case law as far back as 2001, specifically Baker versus Town of Middlebury, is crystal clear. You cannot hold executive sessions under 6.1B6. Even the public access counselor, who Palmer arrogantly dismissed, has repeatedly cited this case law in opinions addressing this exact issue. Any competent attorney with even a shred of dedication to their research would have known that these meetings must legally be public. Yet here we are, dealing with continued incompetence. It's time to hold Palmer accountable. Just days ago, Palmer attempted to have Dr. Davis arrested, a brazen move that reeks of misconduct. Palmer has routinely issued incorrect advisory opinions, made improper interjections, and now plays an active role in stifling transparency in our local government. And for all this, Palmer's paid $8,240 per month, courtesy of the taxpayers. Are we really getting the representation we deserve? I think not. It's time for this council to act. The residents of South Bend deserve an attorney who respects the law, values transparency, and genuinely works for their best interest. I call on this council to terminate their agreement with Bob Palmer because South Bend deserves better. We demand better.
Thank you so much for your comments. Please state your name for the record, please.
Trina Robinson, NAACP President, 914 Lincoln Way West. Since members of this council have the tendency to get upset when their names are mentioned, I will do my best not to mention anyone by name. However, it behooves me how you don't want your name mentioned when you are being held accountable, but you want me to mention your name when you want my vote. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. I'm here today in support of Dr. Oliver Davis. The intimidation tactics and the disrespect was nothing short of criminal. If Dr. David had acted in the manner his attacker had, he would have been arrested and removed from the council. So I ask, why would anyone suggest Dr. Davis relent his seat and go to the audience? Could it perhaps be that we're still living in the Willie Lynch syndrome, or perhaps the crab in the barrel mentality? Or is it because no one wants to upset Mr. Charlie? Dr. Davis has a right to remain seated, and he did a fantastic job of restraining himself when his personal space was being violated by someone wanting to prove a point. In my neighborhood, when someone violates your personal space, it is a no-brainer what was to follow. I am also dismayed that based on what Dr. Davis has mentioned, the events that occurred afterwards, he was accused of acting like the N-word, and no one respected him nor recognized his degree. I'm not sure what the N-word acts like, because if we were able to use that word so loosely, was his attacker acting like the N-word? It is my recommendation that Dr. Davis's attacker be reprimanded, required to attend anger management, restorative justice, and conflict resolution classes, as well as make a public apology to Dr. Davis and the community. Additionally, the council member who felt so comfortable degrading Dr. Davis owes him an apology. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other? If not, this meeting is now adjourned. Before we adjourn, I just want to say again, like we say every week, thank you all for interacting. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here today. And we'll give you one more.
Reverend Sylvester Williams Jr., 702 Lincoln Way West. I'm here today to learn and to listen, and I hope that the needle will move this evening. I'm here because I was scheduled to be here to receive a proclamation from this council because of the historical work of WBS radio station for 32 years in this city. After all the infighting, confusion, I told my staff that we would not receive a proclamation from this council. I called President Lee, who I love and mentored, along with Pastor King, and they know the work that we've done over the years and rightly deserve a proclamation from this city. But because of what we saw, we decided it wasn't in our best interest during this heated time to receive anything from this council. We will be willing to receive it once the needle moves in the right direction. Right now, it's headed toward empty, but it could be headed toward full if you're in full agreement to work with one another. The Bible says, he that's without sin casts the first stone. The Bible says that he that hates his brother hates God. It also says that we need to turn the other cheek if you have another cheek to turn. And I hope you do. So I say that from the humble stance that I'm honored to be asked to have been here to receive that wonderful proclamation, and I'm gonna hold you to it, because I'm gonna come back when the needle move to full. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Again, everybody, you can see we try to do everything respectful. So with that being said, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming and participating. God bless you and be safe. This meeting is now adjourned.